Welcome back to my channel. I am continuing to talk about why I emphasize and advocate for setting healthy boundaries. And so I started sharing my story yesterday, my journey, how I got here. But another important aspect that I want to add is that setting the boundaries was for me, not just for those in my life who I was setting boundaries with, but it was also for myself. And so, what I mean by that is that when I have a boundary in place, or if I have, for example, I used yesterday journaling. If I'm going to journal, like when I wake up every morning for like 15 minutes, then this gives me the discipline, the understanding, it helps me set that up, right? So then I have to get up at a certain time. If I have somewhere to be, if I need to start working, whatever it is that I have to do, whether it's the weekend or during the week, I know that I need to set an additional 15 to 20 minutes, maybe even 30, for me to get up to make sure that I meet my goal. Another aspect of setting healthy boundaries around journaling was me just working through some of the tougher, harder, um, deeper things that I shared yesterday, which was, if you're tuning in today for the first time, is that as an adoptee who had reconnected with my birth family, I needed the space and the time to process. And so that also included setting boundaries, right? With my energy, with just with what I would and wouldn't share. There's also boundaries around what you're ready to talk about. So for me growing up, I had always been told I talk a lot, I talk too much, talk, 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 talk. This was always said to me in a very negative way. And so I had that in which people thought they just knew me and they knew everything about me. But the truth about me is that although I may talk, I may not be sharing something deeper that I'm just not ready to share, or I may not be sharing that deeper thing with whoever I'm talking to at the moment. And so having that healthy boundary of journaling helped me process, right, things that I was not ready to say out loud to anyone, helped me get my thoughts out, work through it. Now, during this time, I did see a therapist off and on who specialized in adoptees and who specialized in the particular things I had gone through. But I didn't always see a therapist. I see a therapist periodically. I think it's healthy to see a therapist. But even with seeing a therapist, they can only help you so much. It is still your job to process whatever it is that you need to be working out. Even with your therapist, they can help you, but then you have those other days when you're not talking to a therapist. Even if you do text therapy, right? And you talk every day, you have those other hours during the day that you have to work out. And so setting those healthy boundaries helped me create the space that I needed on top of other things, on top of school, on top of work, on top of home life, on top of travel, extracurriculars, whatever it is, it just helped me definitely have a space, an understanding with myself, an understanding at home that, hey, when I wake up, the first thing I'm going to do is set up this time and this space for me. And right now I'm in my home office, but this has always looked different over the years. So I've lived in an apartment where I didn't have a primary space per se. I had like a home office set up in like a guest room slash we use the closet for stuff, but I still could just get into that corner, maybe close the door and just have that little carved out space and time for myself. So it's not a matter of whether you feel like, it's not always a matter of whether you feel like you have the exact space for it or not. It's just making that space and carving that space out. And so I do talk a lot about journaling. I did publish my own journal, but I do advocate for just using a blank notebook, right? If you have a notebook, if you have it can be a legal pad, it can be a small notebook. Some people like smaller spaces to write. And so it's not about the size, it's not about like it being this journal, it's not about what it could just be. For some people, they could just find loose paper and put it in a folder and make that their journal, right? You can journal on your phone. It's just about you making sure that the boundary is in place for you to process whatever it is you need to process. It may not be journaling for you. Journaling is just one modality that I'm a big fan of because over the years, I've used it to help me work through those deeper things, work through, like I said, reconnecting with my birth family, work through being in college, work through whatever I was going through, whatever transition in life. But for you, it could be setting up a boundary just to have 10 to 15 minutes to listen to music. It could be meditation and deep breathing. It could be literally just watching clips from something that's, I would advocate for uplifting, but whatever it is for you that you need to do just to make sure that you're caring for yourself. And that's a reason to have a boundary in place. I do I do advocate for this being like at the beginning of the day because like I said yesterday, you don't know what the day will hold. So if you plan to do it at the end of your day, something could definitely come up and interrupt you. You just never know. And so when you wake up, it's not that you can't wake up to an emergency also, but when you wake up, a lot of times you have the most control over that moment, over that small space. And another bonus to doing journaling or carving out, setting that boundary for your time for a few minutes in the morning is that it sets the tone for your day. Now, when I was younger, I remember my father would wake up and he didn't just always jump out of bed. He would, just be there and he would literally meditate. And I'd be like, Dad, what are you doing? He like, I'm just meditating and talking to the Lord. And I'd be like, how long have you been doing this? And he'd be like, 20, 30 minutes. So it varies from person to person. And this is how my dad would gather himself in the mornings. Like you really would think he was asleep, but he was not asleep. He called it deep meditation. It wasn't always in the mornings in the bed. Sometimes he would do this in the evening or the afternoon. I would walk by the den and he'd have his eyes closed. I'd be like, Dad, are you asleep? He'd be like, nope, I'm meditating and I'm talking to the Lord. And so, again, this varies from person to person. Even for one person, it could look different at different times in your life. But my whole point is that setting the boundary to carve out that moment for yourself is vital. Very, very, very important, especially as we're going into 2025. Now, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about New Year's resolutions. And for me, I don't look at it like a resolution per se. I just look at it similar to how I see boundaries, like a New Year healthy habit I want to develop. And I've developed habits in the middle of the year too. It's not always about it being at the New Year's. However, when we get to the end of a year to the beginning of the next year, it does feel like a fresh start, just like a blank piece of paper, right? It feels like a blank, fresh sheet of paper where you can just start writing what you want your year to look like. And I'm a fan of that. I am going to do another video where I take like a big notepad and instead of doing New Year's resolutions, we'll just kind of do mind mapping, kind of walk through it and from just more of a free flowing type of way, if you will. And it's not about whether you get it correct 100% of the time. Developing very small habits, they are important because the small habits over time build and stick. And so you could have just three small New Year's habits that you want to develop. One could be, for instance, setting that 10 to 15 minutes a morning to the side. And you might get to February or March and realize that you're not on track. Well, just get back on track. That's it. It's that simple. It's okay if you get off track and have to rotate back over to what you originally set out to do. There's no harm in that. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you messed up that badly. It just means you're human and it takes a long time to develop habits. I want to say like 21 days, they say, maybe experts, I've read this, to develop a habit and then like another 60 or 90 for the habit to stick. So thinking about it from that perspective is just learning something new, like learning to ride a bike or learning how to play an instrument. I don't play instruments, but I'm just thinking about it in terms of continual practice without beating yourself up, right? Without condemning yourself when you feel like you fail, because failure is just not even trying. I always look at developing small habits. Like if you just, for instance, say you want to start walking and you only have 10 minutes a day to dedicate to walking in place, then walk in place for 10 minutes a day. If you walk in place for 10 minutes a day, it's better than 0 minutes. And you will build and you can build. Often, what we like to do as humans, myself included, is compare where we are to the person who's been working out for 5 years. They have the habit, right? They've built on the habit. They're up to like, they might walk 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours a day. Stop comparing yourself, which is a whole different video series I'm not going to go off on a tangent about, but that's also another thing that I think is very important, setting a boundary around comparison. Don't do it to yourself and don't let other people do it to you. Often, when people start comparing you to someone else, they want to dim your light. They want to take you down a notch. They don't want you to feel good about whatever your accomplishment is. And so, again, set that boundary. Hey, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to discuss that. I don't care to talk about that with you. I don't want any feedback on X, Y, and Z. And that is perfectly fine to say. It just is. And sometimes, very often, for your own sanity and sake of peace, you have to say it. Say it respectfully as much as you can, depending on whatever the situation is. Maybe you have to be a little more stern, but you just have to stick to having those boundaries up so that you continue on your journey because they don't know your journey. They do not have your map. Okay. They don't have your map. They don't know where you're headed, and you don't have their map. And so, likewise, maybe you don't weigh in as much on someone else's journey, right? Unless they ask for some feedback. So, what I'm saying about the boundaries, just getting back to that, is that going back to my whole journaling boundary, setting up that time for yourself, it could just be a blank notebook. It doesn't have to be anything you purchase. It could literally be something that you have sitting around at your house right now. And so you don't have to spend money to start putting boundaries in place. You can definitely start on this habit now, even before the new year gets here, so that you're already starting to flow into your new year with your healthy boundary set. And so this is what I wanted to share today. I will continue on my next video to talk about boundaries and to share just more of how setting healthy boundaries helped me personally and how it can definitely help you too on your journey and how it can help you as you're carving out 2025, thinking about the things you want to see, do, dream about, accomplish is also another loaded word. So the things that you want to try, the things that have been on your heart, your dreams, however you need to say that or think about it for it to not seem overwhelming, for it to not seem daunting. That is what I'm saying. So again, start thinking about and setting these healthy boundaries in place. You can use your phone as a reminder. I'll set silent reminders throughout the day. Take a moment to go breathe. Now, do I always adhere to the notification when it, pops up? No, sometimes I'm busy, sometimes I can't. But sometimes I can. And again, a small win is definitely still a win. So set those boundaries in place. It will be life changing for you. Even if you don't see it at first, it will definitely be very pivotal for 2025. I am Kimberly Carter, and I appreciate you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.